Situated in the midst of the Atlantic Ocean, halfway between Europe and the New World, the islands of the Azores were a key reference when navigation routes were established. The memory of this fact goes back to the 15th century and still remains today in the conviction that here on the island of Santa Maria, Christopher Columbus docked on his return from his voyage of the discovery of America. Years earlier, on August 15, 1432, the first settlers had disembarked here, and the island was given the name of Santa Maria to mark the date. This was the first indication that with these men came a whole cultural tradition which would provide a continuous link between the Azores and the old continent. Having sown the first seeds on land, a society soon grew up which reproduced the habits, practices, cultures, and creeds brought from its origins. Here the Baroque took on an original rustic form, which has endured to the present, as has the simplicity of the traditional Mediterranean-style houses with chimneys that are typical of the Algarve. Times change, and so do social habits. But on the island of Santa Maria, the essence of the local landscape lives side by side with the modern forms of exploiting its natural charms. Another sign of resistance to change can be seen in the oldest Azorean festival, which is still celebrated today, the Festival of the Divine Holy Spirit. A medieval tradition connected with the Franciscan order, it has long been lost in the Christian Europe that gave it birth, but survives here, a symbol of popular faith and an ancestral sense of solidarity. The sharing of bread, meat, and wine continues to be an annual ritual with the community spirit, diluting social distinctions and celebrating the essential equality of the human condition. On Santa Maria, as on any other of the islands, this is the most joyful of religious festivals, a genuine embrace uniting all Azorians, the most colorful expression of which lies in the Holy Spirit dramas of the island of Terceira. On this island, formerly named Terceira de Jesus Cristo, the exuberance of the traditional local festivities unites harmoniously with the distinct higher-class urban fabric. The city of Angra, built on a grid pattern dating from the 16th century, built an imposing set of religious, civil, and military buildings throughout the following centuries, which led UNESCO to classify it as a World Heritage Site. Indeed, there was a time when international navigation passed regularly through this city, the headquarters of the supplies for the armadas. Portuguese ships from Brazil and India, Spanish vessels laden with silver from Mexico and Peru, and even old pirate ships fighting to survive, found here a supply of fresh water, meat, and biscuits, as well as the opportunity to rest, recover their strength, and repair their ships ready for the final lap of the return voyage to the realm. Treasures of rare value from the 16th and 17th centuries have remained on this island. Buildings of undeniable historical and artistic value dot the map of the town of Angra do Heroísmo. The old restored cathedral which dominates the heart of the town. The former Jesuit church and college, which was converted into the Palace of the Captaincy Generals. The former church and convent of São Francisco, now a museum, which houses a valuable and complete collection of arms, objects, and works of art that illustrate and preserve the memory of times gone by and help us to understand them better. A past which had its golden age of riches and multiple cultural connections, which even today is reflected in the artistic heritage that still adorns many corners of the town and the island. The fortress of São João Batista, built when Portugal was under Spanish rule in the Italian style, is a symbol of Terceira's proud historic past and is a reminder of her resistance to invasion and her struggle for freedom. Terceira again assumed national leadership when Angra became the seat of the realm during the preparations for the liberal military campaign led by King Peter IV. Owing to the courage and spirit of sacrifice displayed by the town of Angra during the constitutional struggles, the town was renamed as a reminder of these acts of heroism, Angra do Heroísmo, a proposal made by Almeida Garrett and granted by King Maria II. While these facts nurture a memory of Angra's aristocracy, the island's local traditions are still the flame which ignites the island's soul. Traditional and street bullfights, dances and carnival balls, festivities on Saints' Days in the summer are just a few instances of a real annual cycle of local celebration, which has earned Terceira the reputation of being the most joyful of all the islands of the Azores.
Todos,
But in contrast to the lively festivities and the bustle of urban life, Terceira holds another universe, where the traditional calm of rural life beats to the rhythm of the cycles of nature. Secret treasures are hidden in the island's interior. Volcanic phenomena can be seen in the fumaroles of the Furna do Enxofre, or sulfur cavern, and the enormous caves of up to 100 meters in depth, which reveal ancient formations of stalactites and stalagmites. At the surface, the beauties of nature clothe the soft, green, lush hillsides which slope down to the sea. The sea is a constant presence of irresistible invitation to pleasure and relaxation. And it is a true pleasure to discover the tasty cuisine of Terceira, one of the richest in the Azores, which includes the famous alcatra stew, traditionally cooked in a stone oven. Locally produced high-quality meat and the local wine Vinho do Cheiro are the prime ingredients of this regional dish, which is always available, if not obligatory, at home, in restaurants, and for social and festival celebrations, such as the Harvest Festival, which is held annually in the Biscoitos parish. This area, which has a proud tradition of winemaking, produces Verdelho wine. Biscoitos has made a collective effort to preserve this tradition and has created a wine confraternity and a wine museum to perpetuate the memory of the techniques and artifacts of former times. Wine production is a tradition on a number of the islands of the Azores, and Terceira is not the only one which has a wine museum. In Santa Cruz on Graciosa Island, the Museum of Ethnography houses a rich collection, witness to the winemaking tradition of this island where the long-famous Verdelho wine has its roots. Museum pieces also form part of the same construction, that of the island's memory. Glazed earthenware and pottery, and the images and instruments of religious art stand in eloquent silence, collectively evoking the past. Outside, unaware of the passing of time, the gestures and skills of the art of making bread from cereals is still alive. Bread was once not simply a means of subsistence, but a source of wealth, as the export of grain used to be one of the mainstays of the island's economy. The town of Santa Cruz nestles around two lakes, another reminder of the past. They were once drinking fountains for animals, but are today purely ornamental. The lakes are the heart of the town, bordered by araucaria pines, surrounded by rows of traditional white houses, including wealthy mansions of the past, all extremely beautiful and genuine in style. The Mother Church, which dates from the 16th century and was restored and extended in the 18th century, completes the architectural complex of Santa Cruz, an urban nucleus that has been well preserved by both man and by the passing of years. Serene and white, Santa Cruz town transmits the tranquility that is characteristic of Graciosa's landscape, composed of gentle mountains and softly rolling plains. Along the coast, the sea is dotted by tiny islets, some clothed in vegetation, home to various species of birds. The serenity of nature which envelops the island acquires an unexpected human dimension at Carapashu, where medicinal waters guard ancient secrets of health and well-being. Beneath this calm surface, however, lie the remains of the island's volcanic origins, which are particularly evident in the Forno do Enxofre, or sulfur cavern, which lies inside the crater of an extinct volcano. At a depth of 100 meters, with an 80-meter high dome and a sulfur lake, this is a true monument to Graciosa's volcanic nature, as is the case of other smaller caves around the island. Dust, barrenness, and solitude are the telluric reminiscences of the volcanic eruption of 1957 at Capelinhos on Fayal Island. For some months, the depths of the ocean revealed their mystery of lava and ash in a long cry of fury which brought terror to the soul and sculpted a new landscape on the island. Day upon day of anguish disrupted the islanders' routine and caused a surge of emigration. A whole island was left behind to recompose itself from the terror and destruction. Little by little, life returned to normal, and under the constant gaze of Pico Mountain, Fayal returned to its customary rhythm and cozy placidity. The town of Horta, nestling between Ixpalamaca and the Monte de Guillo, with its natural harbor, has been a port of call for ocean shipping since the middle of the 18th century. Initially, it was used by whalers who came from New England to hunt in its waters, later by transatlantic steamships, and finally in the 20th century by the hydroplanes that connected the two sides of the Atlantic and which used to stop here to rest and refuel. The English colony, which was resident in Fayal during the 19th century, helped forge the culture of the port, lending it a cosmopolitan air and cultivating a convivial spirit of hospitality while preserving its local identity. And it is just like this today. The cozy, placid town of Horta welcomes seafarers from far and wide to its port and marina. Here in this small cafe, under the protection and affable smile of old Peter, the tradition is carried on. This is the home to the arts of the sea, encounters and reunions, the meeting place for travelers. But it is also home to those who enjoy receiving visitors from afar and listening to their tales of tempests and calm seas. A true port of emotions and affection, which has become famous throughout the world, it preserves the memories of those who visit it, just as the ritual paintings on the harbor walls are a reminder of the auspicious farewells of those who depart in search of new adventures. The past is preserved by the art of scrimshaw in skillfully carved whale tooth. This art is growing short of raw material now that whales are no longer pursued by the hunter, but by the curious protective eye of biologists and nature lovers. But on the other side of the channel, on Pico Island, which has a great whaling tradition, the memory of these heroic times is kept very much alive, times when hunger could only be quelled by confronting the monster and the ocean's fury. In the parish of Lajes, conversation is enlivened by tales of the old whalers. Tales of heroism and tragedy recall former hard times when subsistence depended both on skill and good fortune in the unequal struggle between man and the giant of the sea. Memories which are preserved in the Whaling Museum, which houses everything related to whale hunting and the extraction of oil, which was the true wealth offered by the whale. Instruments, techniques, and whaling equipment can be found both in the Whaling Museum in Lajes and the restored whaling factory in Saarbrück. Torn between land and sea, the men of Pico used to both hunt the whale and till the land. The island's soil, rocky and poor, barely produced enough food to subsist. But thanks to the ingenuity and persistence of the islanders, who were subject to very limited resources, a unique wine production was cultivated. There was a time when Pico's famous Verdelieu wine graced the sumptuous tables of European courts. Times have changed, but the vines continue to thrive on the charred ground, like green brushstrokes of life, framed by the black stone walls of ancestral wisdom. From its lofty heights, Pico Mountain keeps watch over its treasures. Extensive areas of the island are still covered in virgin endemic vegetation, which, together with the lakes and the black volcanic rock, compose a picture of natural wild beauty, which these days is hard to find. Pico Island, the true heart of the archipelago, can be seen from various neighboring islands. Pico dominates the island of São Jorge as if it were part of its very identity. From across the channel, Pico Mountain completes the silent, austere landscape of this island, which has learned over the centuries to value its singularity. The Fazache, low-lying coastal areas, are particularly beautiful. Serene spots where the sea laps at the feet of orchards, tilled fields, and lakes which are rich in their biological variety. Unexpected treasures are to be found in the island's characteristic buildings, such as the case of the Menades Church, dedicated to St. Barbara, which is so richly decorated in Baroque style that it has been classified as a national monument. From the heights of its steep cliffs, Açoreanos spreads across huge extents of pasture land, testifying to its long tradition of cattle farming. Yet even though this is one of the key economic activities throughout the islands, Açoreanos preserves its difference in its famous cheeses. The small cheese factories still use traditional methods, despite the introduction of modern equipment, and just as they did in the past, produce a cheese with a strong, distinctive flavor. Quite unlike other Açorean cheeses, it is deservedly the most famous and most sought after in the archipelago. Weaving by loom is another genuine feature of the island. Even though traditional woven articles are produced on other Açorean islands, the woven blankets unique to Açoreanos are original in design, color, and weave. Handicrafts are one of the richest forms of creativity in the Azores. On the island of São Miguel, there are two distinct types of local pottery. In Vila Franca do Campo, it is an age-old tradition producing rustic clay articles responding to the needs of the simple daily life of the past, unsuited to decorative ornaments. While the pottery produced in the town of Lagoa originates in the 19th century and combines formal, original decorative patterns with glazing techniques, making it more resistant and in line with more recent tastes. These pieces, preserved in museums, contribute to the image of the traditional Açorean household. But the past also reaches us through more erudite arts. The paintings of the artist Domingos Rebelo are a naturalistic document of the former lifestyle of São Miguel. His canvases reveal the true world of cultural references, depicting the strong ties to their native land of those who left in search of a better life. The canvases speak of nostalgia and faith. These are still features of Açorean society, despite the fact that conditions have changed so much that it is easy to forget the almost innate desire to emigrate that characterized generations of Açoreans. Yet the longing for home is a feeling still very present today and is most intensely lived once a year during the festivities of Senhor Santo Cristo do Milagres, our Holy Lord of Miracles. The Lent pilgrimages are another ritual of the past that is upheld by the persistence of faith. Every year, groups of men traverse the island in a penitential pilgrimage. In former times, they were mainly country people. These days, the social makeup of the groups has changed, but is disguised by the use of similar garb, as all are united in the same spirit of sacrifice and in the condition of pilgrims.
Eis-me a vossos pais,
Tended by man's labor and love, yet indifferent to his feelings, the land also completes its annual cycles, clothed in different shades and embellished by the flowers of each season. At any time of the year, one can discover sublime views and spots of rare beauty, or the eternal embrace uniting land and sea. Throughout the year, one can enjoy the contact with nature in the Azores. The temperatures are mild and the autumn and winter light, filtered by the clouds, and it can offer unexpected perspectives of long familiar places. Even the rain lends the island a strange charm. But nature can best be appreciated in the summer. One is easily tempted by the sun and the call of the sea, and can benefit further from all the up-to-date resources that make the island even more appealing. In the past, the island of São Miguel profited from the fertile land by exporting shiploads of wheat, woad, or oranges, but has since learned to try out new paths of development. This happened in the 19th century when the orange blight threatened the principal source of the island's economy. As an alternative, new crops were introduced to take advantage of the land's natural conditions and brought the island in line with modern European economies by developing local industries. Agricultural-based industries producing and processing tobacco, flag and sweet potato have given a boost to the economy, while their exoticism and uniqueness are seen as a plus factor for the land. Pineapple cultivation has transformed the landscape with dozens and dozens of greenhouses, which today are a reminder that production still continues, the true symbol of the quality and persistence of agriculture in São Miguel. To crown this investment in innovation, the introduction of tea cultivation was a brave economic gamble, which involved bringing out 2 Chinese experts to the island to teach the art of tea growing. Today, the only tea-producing factory in the whole of Europe still operates on the island of São Miguel, where for over a century, tea has been grown locally. Nowadays, although circumstances have changed, the island of São Miguel is still convinced that its greatest source of wealth lies in the creative exploitation of its natural resources. Thus, it seeks to maintain a healthy balance between nature and the demands of progress. While taking care of its urban centers, it also strives to value the heritage left by past generations. Plastic artists, writers, and poets, as well as politicians and scientists, have contributed with a unique cultural legacy, which is particularly evident in works illustrating the Açorean interpretation of Baroque art. Another inheritance of the past is the profound religiosity which has also characterized Açorean life. Equally characteristic, especially on the island of São Miguel, is the unconditional surrender to the land, which, despite its inconsistency, has always seduced man with its exoticism and the subtle suggestion of distant paradises. Here in the Furnas Valley, the inhabitants have long been aware that the secret of its volcanic origins lies close at hand. Occasionally, gripped by fear, they regain their calm, confronted by the powerful, rare beauty of the breathing earth. Here man comes face to face with the reality of nature, exuberant and entrancing, yet awesome and terrifying. But its captivating mystery prevails. The islanders discovered miraculous cures in the Furnas waters, and deep inside the earth, they found the secret ingredient for one of the most exotic of local dishes. A dish which even today is served to visitors and reminds them of the simple, natural way of life of their predecessors. It is the modern recreation of the simple meal of the poorer inhabitants of the valley, who used to cook taro or potatoes in holes dug out of the earth. People used to bathe in small, primitive shelters made from branches. Nowadays, there is a modern hydrotherapy center in Furnas, again linking a sense of tradition with the comforts afforded by up-to-date technology. Seemingly, the more distant the place, the more sumptuous the spectacle of nature. Everything has the untouched air of a gift of the gods. One loses one's gaze in the vibrant greens, the mass of flowers, or the mirrored mysteries of the lakes, the cascading waterfalls, or the secret depths of the caves. Yet on this small island, battered by wind and sea, one can suddenly be surprised by bright sunshine. especially nature lovers who are prepared to venture out, whatever the weather, on an adventure of discovery and communion with nature. The island of Flores is a natural paradise with such an immense botanical and geological and hydrological diversity that most of the central zone has been classified as a natural forest reserve. Extending one's gaze to contemplate other worlds, Flores was, in the days of the sailing ships, a reference point for charting courses, the westernmost corner of Europe. It continues to be a special geographic and political frontier. Over 3 centuries ago, ships laden with silver and gold came from the New World, and they passed by here, rich and fragile, ready for the long-feared plundering by French and English pirates. The 2 small islands of Flores and Corvu were well known to them, and it was here that they found protection and survival. Both pillage and trading were familiar terms here. No doubt it was as a means of self-defense that the little town of Villanova do Corvu grew the way it did, with narrow, twisting streets, houses that rub noses with one another, their tiny windows serving as lookouts over the sea. They tell stories of times of isolation and self-sufficiency. These stone mills, some of which are still active, have a rotating dome that allows the triangular sails to follow the direction of the wind. This small detail is of special ethnographic interest. It also reminds us of the uncertainty of a long past when bread signified not just food, but survival, and they couldn't afford to let the mills stop working because of unfavorable winds. Stories of times gone by, threads of memory which have woven the bonds that tie men to these islands. Over the centuries, these Portuguese islands have constructed an identity of their own, governed by their history and geography. A singularity which was institutionalized in 1976 within a regime of political administrative autonomy, when these 9 Atlantic islands became the present autonomous region of the Azores of the Republic of Portugal.
Von hier oder von jedem anderen nach Osten gewandten Punkt der Region Nordeste kann man das unvergleichliche Strahlen der açorianischen Sonne bewundern. Und ein neuer Tag kann beginnen mit dem köstlichen Geschmack von frischem Ziegenkäse. In der Quinta das Queimadas bestimmt die Tradition das Alltagsleben, wie diese Fächerschwanztauben, das tägliche Ziegenmelken oder die althergebrachte Produktionsweise des Käses. Der Bezirk Nordeste wird geschätzt als blumenreichste Region der Azoren. Mehr als 100 Quadratkilometer bieten unzählige Naturschönheiten, malerische Dörfer und die kleine Stadt, von der der Name stammt. Im Naturschutzgebiet des Pico da Vara findet man einheimische Pflanzen wie verschiedenste Lorbeer- und Wacholderarten, Bergwaldzeder, Quiroga und Sanguinho. Oder die Baumheide, die hier immer noch die hügelige Landschaft der Gebirge und Schluchten bedecken. In der Ebene wechseln sich Viehweiden mit Kryptomerienwäldern ab. Es herrscht Friede. Am Wegesrand sprießen auf fruchtbarem vulkanischen Boden Blumen und Pflanzen. Aus vielen Wasserfällen, Quellen und Bergbächen sprudelt das Wasser. Die treibende Kraft für alte Wassermühlen. Heute wieder nützlich, um den Mais zu mahlen. Für eine Insel, auf der die Natur von einem beständigen Grün geprägt ist, sind die Wasserläufe mit ihrem Überfluss und wegen ihrer Reinheit ein unschätzbares Erbe. Das gemäßigte subtropische Klima der Insel San Miguel bringt auch genug Regen, um die Erde zu wässern und die Flüsse zu versorgen. In den 7 Gemeinden von Nordeste bearbeitet man die Äcker, um Kartoffeln zu ernten oder um das Vieh zu ernähren. Die Landwirtschaft beschäftigt zurzeit die große Mehrheit der Inselbevölkerung. Die Kartoffeln von Nordest, auch die Süßkartoffeln, sind auf der ganzen Insel begehrt und werden auch aufs Festland geliefert. Im Städtchen Nordest zeigt das Museum der Region Kunsthandwerk und religiöse Gegenstände, die, obwohl sie so alt sind wie die Besiedelung der Insel, ihre Bedeutung nie verloren haben. Wie die Verehrung des Divino Spiritu Santo, eine Glaubenstradition auf der ganzen Insel, besonders während der Sommermonate. Oder wie der Gebrauch des Webstuhls beim Herstellen der Umhänge und Kleider, die die Folkloregruppen von San Miguel schmücken. Hier entsteht gerade ein Rock, der zu vielen regionalen Tänzen getragen wird, auch zum bekannten Baile Furado. Über die gesamte Küste von Nordest verstreut sind die Miradouros Aussichtspunkte auf die verborgenen Schönheiten am Grunde der Schluchten, auf kühle Wasserfälle und auf die Fluten, die gegen die dunkle Lava schlagen. Dieses dunkle Lavagestein ist typisch für alle Gemeinden. Es bestimmt das Erscheinungsbild der religiösen Architektur und entspricht so auch der ruhigen Lebensweise der Bevölkerung von Nordest. verbreitete Religiosität wird durch Feste bestimmt. Die Orchester haben einen Vermittlungsauftrag zwischen Göttlichem und der Welt, denn der Prozession folgt das Volksfest. Beides unweigerlich begleitet vom Klang einer Banda, sei es der von Eco Edificante, von Estrella do Oriente oder von Immaculada Conceição. Die Glocke schlägt, wenn die Christusstatue auf die Straße getragen wird und das Volk sich in Ehrfurcht verbeugt, weil der Glaube es so will und die Tradition es so bestimmt. Kurzlebig, aber schön und wohlriechend. Die Blumenteppiche warten auf den rhythmischen Schritt der Prozession in der bedächtigen Haltung der Gläubigen. Nach Einbruch der Nacht wird man gemeinsam ein fröhliches Volksfest feiern. Friedlich unter der Sommersonne zeigt das Zentrum des Städtchens von Nordest seinen unverfälschten azoreanischen Charakter. Die weiß gekalkten Gebäude mit ihren Basalteinfassungen, die wohlgepflegten Gärten, die frischen Springbrunnen oder das portugiesische grau-weiße Pflaster. Auch das praktische Alltagsleben wird hier nicht vergessen. Die Erfordernisse des modernen Straßenverkehrs, der Telekommunikation sowie der Stadtbeleuchtung sind einfühlsam kombiniert mit der Eleganz der alten Herrenhäuser und der Würde der Kirchengebäude. Vom Meer herauf schallen die Geräusche des geschäftigen kleinen Fischerhafens von Nordest, wo der frische Fang des Tages ausgeladen wird. Abroter, Tesouros, Kongru, Pargu und Garupa. Das regt den Appetit an auf eine einfache, aber sehr schmackhafte Küche. Und die Speisekarten der Gegend sprechen für sich. Ein ausgezeichneter, gebratener Pargu wird stilvoll serviert im Restaurant Tronqueira. Gutes Grillfleisch im Gasthaus Forno de Cal. Blutwurst mit frischer Ananas beim Cardoso. Torresmos de molho de fígado im Restaurant Esplanada. Und bei Debbie eine unvergessliche Fenchelsuppe, ein besonders typisches Gericht der Gastronomie von Nordest. Wer sich für das Leben im Freien begeistert, für den gibt es kaum etwas Schöneres als einen gemütlichen Ausritt. Oder eine entspannende Wanderung, um die Farben und Geräusche der Natur aufzunehmen. Man kann natürlich auch im Atlantik tauchen, dessen Wellen am Strand von Lombogordo auslaufen, der wegen seiner hervorragenden Wasser- und Hygienebedingungen mit der blauen Flagge der EU ausgezeichnet worden ist. Oder man nutzt das moderne Meeresschwimmbad, dessen Wasser ständig durch die Gezeiten erneuert wird. Auch der komfortable, gepflegte Campingplatz findet zunehmend seine Anhänger. Wie er auf die Unendlichkeit des Meeres blickt, ist der Leuchtturm Farol de Ponta do Arnel nicht nur ein wichtiger Bezugspunkt für die Schifffahrt, sondern zugleich ein Ort von seltener Schönheit. Diese Schönheit zeichnet auch alle anderen Miradouros, Parkanlagen und Picknickplätze aus. Ein besonderes Kennzeichen der Küste von Nordest, der blumenreichsten Gegend der Azoren. Hier in Nordest, wo die Sonne aufgeht, genießt man auch ihre letzten goldenen Strahlen, bevor sie hinter dem fernen Horizont verschwinden.